Okay, so hello, Stephane again. Welcome, Stephane Riethauser, Director of Madame.
Hello, everyone.
And let's start the Q&A. So yeah, my first question would be, with such a personal story, for how long have you been planning, intending to make this film, and how long has it been brooding in you before you actually started working on it?
Well, actually, it all started with the flamboyant personality of my grandmother. I had a very strong connection to her. And on her 90th birthday, I started filming her. And because I wanted to record the stories she was telling me. She was getting old and she had just such a fantastic life and full of incredible stories. And I started to record her and do some interviews with her, but not with the intention of making a film about it. It was more private for the family. And I filmed her on a regular basis for a couple of years. And sometimes she would also tell me, oh, but maybe you could do a film about me, about my life. And I didn't really take it seriously, honestly. She was also a dragon. She was a difficult, very strong personality, and she wanted always to control everything. And I was not sure it would make a good movie, honestly. But then 10 years after her death, I watched the tapes. I was between two projects, and I saw some interesting scenes that maybe could tell something about the condition of women. And my aim was to do something about women. And then, to make a long story short, because the whole process took about 5 years, from the beginning of my idea and the first views of the tape to the completion of the production and the completed film, I reflected on my own education, also watching all this archive material. And I stumbled upon images that struck me as some archetype of what could be a male and what could be a female, and all of the material that my dad shot also in his youth. I had access to this amazing material just looking for stuff about my grandmother, but I discovered a lot more. And then I decided to put myself into the film, but only about 2 years later, after I started the project. And with the idea that my coming out story could reflect her destiny as a woman. And gay people, gay men especially, have to suffer from the same rules and domination structures like women do. And our stories, although they're both very different, merge into that concept that we both have to suffer from male heterosexual heteronormative domination, and that we have to free ourselves from these social, political, educational structures. And in that sense, I thought these two stories could be combined. And then I wanted to do something intimate, something authentic, something true that maybe could speak to the heart of the people. And this was my desire all along. But I must say I got lost during the process of production, sometimes lost in the amount of material that I had. It was like, what exactly do I want to say? And finally, I wanted to say something about gender. So I tried to point out all the archetypes of her story and mine, and what it means to be a woman in her time, what it means to be a gay man from my generation, and how we both freed ourselves from this patriarchy that was enslaving us.
And with such an intimate reflection of yourself and your grandmother, was your family okay with showing this much personal stuff in the film, even though it's more about you and your grandmother, but still?
Actually, it's funny that you ask, because I didn't ask for permission at first. I only asked my father could I maybe use your old archive materials? I have an idea. I want to do something about our grandmother. And he said, well, sure, you can, but I don't really see any interest. And I was like, well, maybe I have an idea. And then I worked on my own. And I was a little bit anxious, I must say, because I am exposing my family, indeed, in this film. I am saying a lot about myself, about my grandmother. My grandmother is dead now. I'm responsible for myself. But in this film, I'm exposing my parents. And I'm reminding them of some painful moments also that they had to go through during my coming out. Finally, they loved the film. And I remember when I first showed them the film before the premiere, they said, oh, it's a nice film, actually. It's funny to see grandma again alive on the screen. And it's funny to see us when we were young, but we don't really know who might be interested in such a story. And they didn't have the right distance, and they didn't quite understand or just see the sociological study that I tried to make. They saw themselves just with no filter. And it's only after the premiere and the first reactions from people that didn't know our family that they could understand that maybe this film was telling some kind of universal story and that they were only protagonists. And I must say it was also a little bit difficult for my dad, because one could think, watching the film, that he's just an old, conservative, homophobic dad that doesn't want to evolve. One could think that my mother is just a nice housewife that was baking apple pie and doing nothing else. She had a career also. I had to warn my parents. I was like, I am using you as protagonists, as actors of your own life, but the story I'm telling is not your story. It is my story with my grandmother, with this gender aspect, and this is it. This is a lot. And I must say they agreed. They saw it after a while, and they gave me their full support. And I'm really thankful, because it's also because of their support and their love that I was able to make this film, knowing that they would not be upset or turn their back on me and saying, oh my God, you're saying horrible things about our family. They understood my point. And actually, this film even opened a new dialogue in our family. We started discussing old subjects, coming out, love, death, grandma, the problems, private problems, whatever. It generated the possibility of opening a dialogue, and it made us even a stronger family. My mom told me this, like, also, you're coming out in this film again, you're shaking us a little bit, but in the end, we come out as a better family, because we can address sometimes touchy issues like sexuality also, and you bring that onto the table. It's a taboo. We're not comfortable talking about it like that. But with this film, it allowed us to do so. And the most beautiful thing is, not only it worked in my family, but now I've been showing the film around the world quite a few times. I presented it I think more than 70 times on stage, and now digitally also, and today in KIFF. And thank you again for the selection. I am so happy that the film can be shared with audiences in the Ukraine and beyond. And the most beautiful thing I was saying was that apparently for a lot of people, it opens up a possibility. It opens a dialogue between a couple that goes to the cinema, between two parents who have a gay son, between a grandma and her granddaughter, between people from all kinds of generations. They walk out of the theater and somehow they're touched. It's not their story, but they can reflect their own story. And this was the most beautiful compliment I've heard about the film, that it opens dialogue.
That's wonderful that it helps in that way. It's not just uncovering skeletons in the closet for you and your family, but it helps and helps with understanding, right?
Yes, that was my point.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, mm, did you maybe have a different perspective of your grandmother, get a different perspective while you were making it, see her in some different light, or did you have a clear portrait of her uh, before and in the process of making the film?
My image of my grandmother was always quite sharp in my mind. I was very close to her. She was a very dominant personality. I saw her a lot. We got along very well, but I had to behave. And I knew her quite well. Then it was funny because I started this project 10 years after her death, like I said. So I gathered all the archive material, and at some point I had found everything that I could find. And I said, okay, this is what I have left of my grandmother. The pictures, the little home videos, and her voice on my answering machine, and a few audio recordings I had made with her. And I was thinking myself, is this really giving a true portrait of her? I could not interview her live now with new questions. So I knew that there are some shady times also in her life that she did not necessarily talk about, that she didn't feel comfortable. I would have loved to know more. She remains a little bit of a mystery on some aspects because there are things I don't know about her life. But I think her personality, it comes through in the film. She was funny, she was witty, she was dominant. She wanted to control all the time, even my haircut. She would probably be horrified to see my hair like this today. But in the end, she was a very loving person. She influenced me a great deal. She taught me a great deal how to behave, how to work properly, how to dedicate yourself to your work, how never to be lazy, how to be good to other people. And this, I think, came across. And this is what's left of her in my heart and in my memory, and a little bit also in this film. It's not an objective portrait, but I think people can get a sense of what she was like.
Mm-hmm. And I guess my last question is, what do you think she would have said if she were alive and had seen this film?
I think she was a diva, you know, and she would have loved to be the center of attention. She would have loved to be on the big screen. We had the Geneva premiere where she lived in Carouge, which is a little... The movie theater was actually on the street she lived, where her apartment was. And we had the premiere over there, and there were still people knowing her, friends of her that were a little bit younger at the time. There was the former Swiss president of the Swiss Confederation, Ruth Dreyfus, who is also in the film. She came to the premiere as an honor. It was a big honor for me. It was a full house, and I'm sure she would have loved being there. Now, probably I would have made a different film if she was still alive, but theoretically, I think she would have loved it. And then, of course, she would have hated me for showing her in her bathrobe, in her bedroom, and she was like, "Oh, I look horrible. I look like a witch. I'm not calm. Let me go make myself pretty." She was very coquette also, and she always wanted to be seen in her best light. So in the film, I think she is not always the prettiest. She's just a grandma at home in her home clothes. But I made her human. And this she was. And I think she would have been okay in the end. Also because she loved me. And I think she would have forgiven me even all the shots where she's not at her best.
Well, I think it's a real portrait of a real person, not just a. Well, she comes across as an actual person with some maybe flaws, but also as an amazing and interesting personality. And yeah, I liked kind of meeting with her through this film, and I really hope that our audience also enjoyed it. So yeah, thank you for
Well,
sharing
thank
the
you.
story, sharing the film. And I hope that it gets a good release in France and in other countries. By the way, has it been released apart from festivals in many other countries, or is it planning to be released?
Yeah, for now, I've had altogether about 40 festivals and even more coming. I've had a cinema release in Switzerland that did very well, especially in the French-speaking part where I am from Geneva. I had a cinema release in Germany. Now, these days, it's been released in France. This week, I have a lot of good critics and good reviews. I'm really happy about it. And we just signed a deal with the USA, so it's going to be released by a distributor in America and North America soon. Hopefully when the Corona crisis is over and people can return to the cinemas. And really, I'm thrilled. I honestly never thought this little documentary film I made. I mean, you always dream of sharing your film with the biggest audience possible. But that a documentary like that made it to the cinemas was already a dream for me. And now in many different countries also, that it is shown also in the Ukraine. It was shown also, and it's being shown right this week also in South Africa, in Brazil, in Hong Kong, also digitally. I mean, lots of different audiences have access to this little personal story. It makes me feel a little strange sometimes, but really proud and happy in the end. So I have to thank you, Bohdan, and thank the entire Molodist Festival and the audience also that was there today for coming and for selecting the film and for being there. It makes me really happy. And I wish I could have been there, but hopefully with the next project sometimes in KIFF.
Yes, congratulations on such a success, and I hope it gets to be seen by more people. And yeah, we will be looking forward to your new work, and hopefully things will get back to normal more or less, and we'll get to welcome you in Kyiv at Molodist. So thank you, Stephane.
Hopefully, it'd be a delight. Thank you, Bohdan. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.